Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the TMZ Podcast. I'm Charlie and I'm joined by top dog lawyer at TMZ.
Well, that's a statement right there.
Jason Beckerman.
The competition's not that stiff.
That's true. You got Harvey, you got Derek. And a good thing I've got you here though, because we've got a couple complicated legal stories, but very interesting to discuss. The biggest one in the country right now, Donald Trump. Donald Trump was just found liable.
Yeah.
Tell me all about it.
Well, so actually, we're going to talk about two stories, and I think there's a lot of crossover interplay between them. So
Right.
you have Donald Trump having the verdict against him, $5 million, and then you have George Santos, who's now been arrested. He's been charged and arrested on federal criminal charges. Obviously, very different people. Donald Trump was president of the United States, maybe president again. George Santos is like the lowest-ranking House member ever, and nobody cares about him. He's sort of an embarrassment to the Republican Party and to the country, whereas Trump, has more alleged fans than any person, maybe in American history. I don't know. It's 40 whatever percent of people would die for this guy. So very different stakes.
Correct.
But they're both like hilariously committed to the gag, right?
Just liars.
Well, I mean, yes. So Donald Trump gets his $5 million verdict in a case brought by E. Jean Carroll.
Right.
She says that he raped her in a dressing room at a department store in 1996, and the suit really revolves around that. But what happened later was when she came out during the campaign and accused him of that, he called her a liar and ugly, and he would never touch her.
Yeah,
and stuff
not
like
my
that.
type. Not
my type. So, so she sued. Really, the centerpiece of her case is for defamation. $5 million judgment the jury said against him. He never took the witness stand. He came out afterwards and said he was silenced by the judge. It's just false. I mean, the judge had a written order saying Mr. Trump has until Sunday evening to declare that he wants to testify, at which point he can testify. Donald Trump just didn't do it, and then he says he wasn't allowed to testify. And he just said, he comes out and says all these things. Let me ask you a quick question. As an Australian, as a non-American.
Right.
By birth, forget it.
Yeah.
Do you look at this, because I think that the rest of the world looks at this guy as kind of like, how is he possible?
Right.
Is that sort of the way that like Australians look at him? Like, how is this even conceivable? This happens in a modern, developed, sophisticated democracy?
Well, yeah, of course. But I also think that something like this could happen in other countries if sort of like a populist, famous person somehow convinces a bunch of people that he is the be-all and end-all of truth.
Yeah.
And everything that he says is true, and anything that's said against him is false. Facts or no facts. Like, yeah, he could have testified. E. Jean Carroll, she had witnesses, like people who said that her story was accurate. She told them the following days after the incident. She had like a lot of facts and evidence and that sort of stuff on her side. She had the Access Hollywood tape where he said, people like me can grab her by the pee.
Yeah.
So she had a lot of like...
And then his deposition where he sort of didn't walk away from that. He's like, well, for a million years, people, unfortunately or fortunately,
that we've been
celebrities have been able to grab women by the pee, and that's just the way it is.
So, I mean, it was kind of like an open and shut sort of like
and he didn't look, it's hard to defend yourself against a 30-year-old case. I get that. And he doesn't have any witnesses, so his only possibility was to put himself up as to be cross-examined, to give testimony that didn't happen.
But he wouldn't want that, would he? He wouldn't want that.
He made the right decision. He can presumably he can afford $5 million. If not, many of his sycophants will line up to give him the money to pay it. Question whether he can afford it. I have no sense of his finances.
No.
He may never have had any money. I don't know.
But he just leans.
But he leans into it. Yeah. But he wasn't going to testify because that would have been forever. Sort of like Bill Clinton has never gotten over the. It depends what the is during his deposition. Just these sound bites that are gotten. So he was never going to testify. So it's hard, but yeah, I think everything you're saying is right.
So I mean, as you say, from like an international perspective, looking at this guy, I'm as like befuddled by it all as I think an American would be at this stage. It's just he's like a sitcom. He's crazier than Veep. Like anything you could write about. Someone who's going for the leader of the free world, and says all of these provably false things, and it just witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. Everything's a witch hunt because he's still got like the Stormy Daniels thing, the January 6th thing, the secret documents thing. He's still got all of these different things against him.
Yeah.
And all of them are a witch hunt too.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
So just to give Donald Trump his due, why don't we hear what he said in response to the verdict?
What else can you expect from a Trump-hating, Clinton-appointed judge who went out of his way to make sure that the result of this trial was as negative as it could possibly be? We'll be appealing this decision. It's a disgrace. I don't even know who this woman is. I have no idea who she is, where she came from. This is another scam. It's a political witch hunt. And somehow we're going to have to fight this stuff. The whole thing is a scam. And it's a shame. And it's a disgrace to our country.
Wow.
He has no idea who this woman is, but he has a photo with her. Not to say that he takes photos of millions of people. And who she is somebody who's accusing you of raping her in a dressing room. And by all accounts, you were there, and we know she was there. She worked there. And so by all accounts, you were in the same location. Like, to say you don't know who she is irrelevant. I don't doubt it that he doesn't remember who he is, but that's an indictment of him. Like,
also, wasn't she like minorly famous at the time all this happened too? Like she was like
I don't know, that's possible.
She was a writer for like
Yeah.
Elle magazine, or
Yeah.
she was a famous, and he was a famous like real estate guy.
Yeah.
And so that's why they bumped into each other, and both of them acknowledged they knew who each other was at the time. That's what she said.
So the funniest thing to come out from all this is he was shown a picture of her. He had said she was someone who wasn't his type, and suggesting that, and I think coming out and saying it, that she was just not pretty enough for him, and he would never go after someone like that. So he shows that the attorneys for her show him a picture during his deposition of him with E. Jean Carroll. This is the picture, how we know they knew each other, or they met at some point.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he knew her at all, that they have a picture together. And he mistakenly says, "Oh, that's me with my ex-wife."
Oh.
That was fine mistake, but he's already said that he would never go after a woman like this because she's not attractive enough. But then mistakes her for a picture of his wife, thinks his wife in a photo, and then when corrected, he's like,
My wife wasn't my type?
No, they said, "Was your wife your type?" He goes, "Yeah, she was. She was."
Oh my God.
So this is, just. It's hilarious. I mean, the stakes are so high that maybe you can't say it's hilarious. The polls came out yesterday, I believe, that he is killing Biden in a theoretical matchup. Now,
No,
polls are
really?
polls. Yes, ABC News poll, very high standards, huge polling sample. It's rated like an A+ by various polling sort of watchdog
I've never seen one of
industries.
those, but I assume they're very high.
Yeah, very very good polling agency. He was up by 8 points over Biden.
Wow.
That's not indicative of what would happen in the election, but we know these are going to be two people against it, unless Trump is in jail, which is like 50-50,
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
This is just the next couple years are going to be just so interesting. I mean, if it wasn't real world, it'd be more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be entertaining and bizarre, and
Yeah.
hopefully
The next election's in 18 months. It's
that's
18 months
just
away.
If he wins the presidency,
Oh, he's going to exact retribution against all these people who have done wrong by him, and
Oh.
by any means necessary. And we've seen. I'm not even taking sides, but we have seen that the Republican Congress will not get in his way. So whatever laws the only thing, the Supreme Court is the only thing that gets in his way. We have a hard right Supreme Court. They're not in his pocket by any stretch. They're true constitutionalists, but he will push arresting people. He will push this stuff as much as he can. He has debts that he is going to go after and get paid, and it's gonna be brutal. Anyway, George Santos. What do you? Speaking of, now this is the guy who can happen anywhere, right?
George Santos,
the charlatan.
he just makes me laugh. Most of the time, he makes me laugh, and I don't really see George Santos as
Not
big
a threat.
He's not a threat.
Yeah. He's one of 435 House members, not a threat. Yeah.
Because it seems like he's not well liked by his own party.
He's not.
And it's just one thing after another. Well, he was charged today with 13 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and making false statements to the House of Representatives. He's in big trouble.
He had to put together all these financial documents, as every House member does when you take office. I think when you're running for the office, you have to submit these financials, basically saying, "Here's where I get my money. Here's what my salary is." And the reason is because you have to test for conflicts of interest, right? You have to say, "Oh, you're getting all of your money from General Motors or the automotive industry, that's fine, but you have to disclose that so the American public will know when they're voting for you, and when you're voting on like a clean air bill, how do you vote? And is that because you got all this money from General Motors? Typical stuff. And he just simply lied on these forms. He said he was getting $750,000 in salary from this place. That place never paid him any money. He said he was getting $55,000 from this place. Turns out it was only $27,000. But this is just the most provable financial stuff that he can get in trouble for. But
follow the money.
He's lied at every turn.
Right.
He said he was like a Jew, and he said his parents died in the Holocaust. None of that happened. He said he went to a Jewish university. That didn't happen.
Isn't there like picture of him dressed up as a drag queen?
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't even, to his credit, he didn't lie about that. He just
funny photo.
Yeah, he didn't talk about it. And then his photo emerged. He's like, well, yeah, and his name was Kiko or something like that. It was
my God,
it was fantastic. Everything that he does.
Yes, so he spent the money like instead of on political, he spent it on like his personal expenses like credit cards, luxury clothing.
Yeah,
like this is just unreal.
You don't turn your back on George Santos. I mean, he is just who he is. He's like, look, I'm a big liar. Everything I do is a lie, and that's who I am.
So maybe he can be president.
He could definitely be president. Yeah.
Right. So what's going to happen to him? Like, he's been charged. If found guilty, you're the lawyer.
Yeah.
What do you think the charges against him? Like, what do they bring?
It depends. It depends on the amount of money that. So the big statements here, the false statements to the House of Representatives are not that big of a deal. I mean, perjury charges can be big, but you plead down, you don't get any time. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a criminal record, so probably no jail time for them. The other charges that we don't know as much about are the wire fraud and the money laundering. And we don't know. So wire fraud just means that you have committed in this case, an illegal transaction over telephone, the internet, et cetera. And that's what makes it a federal charge. If it was just a one-to-one inside of a state lie, so I told you, Charlie, I'm going to invest your money in something, hand me a check, that would be a state crime. By doing it over the telephones, by doing it on the computer, it's crossing international or state lines, and therefore it's a federal charge. If the money is real, is big, if the money at stake is big, he could be looking at real jail time.
Really?
You're looking at multiple years. If he was committing fraud, duping people into paying money, and then duping people into sending him money that was a large amount of money for the purpose of paying off his credit card bills or whatever, he could be looking at 6 to 12 years kind of thing.
For real?
Yeah. This could be big. We don't know enough about it. Like, how much money was he taking for his own personal use? What are his defenses? We need to know more about that. The thing about George Santos is I'd be stunned if he took a plea, right? He just seems like he's never admitted lying about anything,
deny.
right? He just goes sit in his chair and then spend the next 8 years in prison.
Could he be like a member of like Congress or whatever, like from prison?
Sure. Yeah, the voters have a right to vote.
That'd be crazy.
Voters voted for him.
They'd set up a desk in his cell.
Right. There's no other part of government that can take away the votes, the duly elected representative. So he can. Now, there's all sorts of internal rules the Republican Party can do to their own, and they probably kick him off any committees. But I think he'll have his 1 in 435 vote until he could be impeached.
That'd be his one phone call a day is to do his like
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, he'll be like, you're on. He'd be calling in. He'd be wearing the orange jumpsuit.
Yeah.
He's got those glass walls against him.
Now, I want to see that show.
Yeah. C-SPAN's ratings would go through the roof. Are you kidding?
That's hilarious.
Just in the glass box, yeah.
So he hasn't come out publicly and said anything yet.
No.
So we're expected maybe sometime later today.
Do you think at some point he breaks and just starts to like cry and admit what he's done?
No.
He says, I've lived my life. I have a psychological illness. I don't know what I'm saying. I have a diagnosis. Here's my psychiatrist's testimony that I have a condition which causes me to. I'm a compulsive liar, that sort of thing.
I mean, it's an interesting question because on the face of it, I'd say absolutely not. But if you could potentially save, 5 years in prison by saying, look, I've got some, mental issue where I can't stop lying.
I'm going to plead guilty to all these charges.
Yeah. If you think that you could maybe save 5 years and admit you're a liar, but he's never really admitted he was a liar before. I don't see him doing it. You just got to... Have you ever told like a little lie? Not that these are little lies, but have you ever told a little lie and it spirals, and you just don't know how to get out of it, or if you really should?
Yeah.
And you're just like, here we are now.
And all of a sudden you're like talking about how you're the balloon man. And
right.
It's like there's no way out of it. Yeah. No, and he seems to be there, but he seems to tell lies without any compunction at all. Like,
no.
Just like things like he graduated from a university, like that's so easy to disprove.
Is part of it almost admirable? Is admirable the wrong word? Like kind of like you look at it
I
and
see
you just
what
go,
you're saying.
how? Like you kind
This
of like
is where I drew the parallels to Trump. Like, you gotta at some point tip your cap to him and just say, "Goodness, you are committed to the gag. You know, you just really want this to work, and be damned the consequences."
Do you think, like, internally, though, like, if you or I tell a lie and it gets out of control, like, you're just consumed by it and you're so
Yes.
stressed and anxious and,
Yeah.
you know, do you think that they're sort of, like, in a world of pain internally?
I can't speak to George Santos. He's too strange. He's too weird. Like, I don't get this guy at all. I don't think Donald Trump has that. I think that he is not paying by any of this. I think he believes that he is the subject of a huge conspiracy to bring him down, and everything that runs contrary to that is because they're in cahoots, they're liars, it's a scam. I don't think he has that in him.
And you think he can potentially, in a year and a half, get, half of America to believe that narrative?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Really?
I think it's less likely than it happening. If I had to bet against it, I'd go the other way. But it's definitely possible.
But yeah, like it's crazy where the political climate is right now. You just think it won't get any weirder, and then it does.
Yeah.
God knows what the future holds.
Yeah, you and I can't move to Australia together. That'd be fine.
You just you and me will leave both our wives here.
Well, they can visit.
All right, man. That's another great day on the TMZ podcast. Thank you for joining me, Beckerman.
My pleasure, Charlie. Anytime.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.